Just as far as coaching other kids, it's super important that you are able to make them feel that you are going to support them regardless of the result, right? Like nothing changes basically because it doesn't, right? If Bob over here goes out and wins, a tournament, like does it really change like what you believe they're going to achieve versus if they lose first round? Like not really in the grand scheme of things, right? So I think it's super important that players feel unconditional support because at the end of the day, the most important thing is are they getting better or are they not, right? And tournaments help to give you a measuring stick, so to speak, on that. But the idea is that they're able to go back to work and say, hey, you know what? Like whether I won or lost the tournament, like today's an important day to get better, and I need to get better. Like I need that. The most important thing is that you need to get better. And then I think there's another thing that's not talked about a lot, which I started thinking about, especially recently, is this idea of like there's process, there's product, and then there's performance, or process result and there's performance, right? So I think a lot of people misunderstand performance. And to me, performance is an intersection between process and results, right? So I mean, Federer expects to perform at a certain level, regardless of whether he's playing terrible. Like, no offense to the three of us, Federer expects to perform well enough to beat the three of us, right? Like, it doesn't like he's like, oh, I'm working on my back. No, like he expects to perform at a certain bar, right? Every single day, regardless of what. And so it's very easy to confuse that with, in my. The results. So for example, I try to work, I try to work with the players on, okay, like if you're aiming for a wide serve and you miss it by 40, by 40 feet, like that, yes, like you can be focused on your process, but that's a bad serve. Like, and that's not like a result based thing. That's just like, okay, like I expect you to get closer than 40 feet on the serve. That's the expectation is that you are going to perform at a certain level, right? It has nothing to do with you even missing the serve. It has everything to do with, okay, like, are you on the right line? Like, are you hitting, are you around the target? Because that's what a great player is going to do, right? So to me, that's like that's something that, I learned, is just, yes, there's a certain element of expectation that needs to come from yourself that you are going to perform at every single day. And that's whether I'm coaching a tennis match or I'm studying something or I'm, like for example, last night I watched the movie Free Solo. Maybe you guys have seen that one. About the guy, about Alex Honnold who climbs El Capitan, and I expect in that moment, right, I'm trying to pick up anything I can to, learn from that movie. I've seen it now. This is like my third time seeing it, right? But every single time I'm like trying to pick up something there, right? Whereas, and this is also why I talk about with the players too, is like, we just had the DC tennis tournament and you go down to the tournament and you can just see the majority of people watching these matches and practices as fans. So they don't get anything. It's like if I meet Umberto, I'm like, oh my gosh, Umberto, like I am such a big fan, blah, 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 blah. Like, and then I don't ask, I'm just kind of like watching on a surface level, not on anything deeper, right? And so I think that I know this is like a long-winded answer, but the idea is that if I was able to step back and, really evaluate myself, in that moment, I was scared to evaluate myself and be truthful. I was kind of in denial in that moment. So I think it's super important that when you're going through these things that, you are receive unconditional support, you give unconditional support, but at the same time, you're super honest, with a player, or you're super honest with yourself. Because I think most people the reason that they, as one of my favorite coaches who I grew up with, Chuck Creasy, says, the majority of players self-sabotage before they find success. And it's so true, in my opinion. The majority of players who could be great are not great because they self-sabotage, because they're scared, right? And until you can actually dig into that, I think you're going to really struggle. And that's what I think, looking back on, that was my number one issue was that I was in denial. Like I did not take a truthful view of my game, of what I was doing, and think about like all these different, what I was not doing well, what I could be doing a lot better. And I think that's a problem, in my opinion, all around us. The majority of people are not truthful, and then that leads into the, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it another day. Oh, I'll, next week, kind of thing. So that's my, that's my honest kind of takeaways from it. And last thing I would just say for tennis players is, look, it's a very tough sport. There's no doubt. I mean, you guys know that. I know that. It's a brutally tough sport, especially mentally. But in my opinion, a huge killer is very few tennis players have unwavering support. And I was super lucky to have two coaches, my coach, Vindo, and Vesaponka, who I still talk to this day consistently. And that to me shows unconditional support. And that was super important for me throughout my career is, obviously they expected a certain level of performance, but I knew they had my back. And very few players, I think, get that. And that's, I think, makes a huge difference. And that's what I'm trying to do with my players,
Yeah. Yeah. So talking about the self-sabotage, I would like to ask you this question, because before you said that you reached a point when you were overtraining and you were working too much. So I would like to ask you about how your work ethic developed during the time, and when you crossed the line, like when you crossed the line and understood like, okay, I'm training too much, I'm doing this not productive. So when you cross that line, because that's very interesting to understand.
Yeah, I still struggle with that to this day because, my whole life, everybody's talked about like working hard, like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And so, yeah, it's a real challenge that I fight. I mean, they have the term workaholic, right? Which, if you think about it, is like not a good term in a sense, right? It's like, I mean, an alcoholic is somebody who abuses alcohol. A workaholic is somebody who abuses work, right? And so so for me, like I wear it as like a badge of honor, but I don't necessarily think it's great. So when I was in college, like I didn't, I later on I tried to work less, but again, I don't think it was necessarily as purposeful as it needed to be. And so I think that's kind of the challenge. I was aware of it because I could feel my body kind of breaking down, and I would get aches and pains, and I would be like, this is kind of, I was aware, like, this is kind of crazy. I'm out here until 1 a.m. hitting serves 4 nights a week, like that, that's probably a sign that, you're probably overtraining a little bit. Right. But I don't think to be completely honest, like, I don't think I necessarily, have overcome that completely, just because, I think it's so ingrained that like working harder is better. Right. And so that I think is false in a lot of ways. And, I think that it's way better to work for, let's say for tennis player, let's say 3 hours on court, an hour of fitness, let's say 4 hours a day, and be super intentional and super focused for every single ball. And then be done, than it is to be out there for 8 hours hitting balls. And you also start to not value the ball, right? You start to just be like, oh, well, like there's another basket coming. Like, oh, there's another serve coming. Oh, there's, it's okay. I got another 4 hours. Like, it's okay if this ball goes out. Like, I'll fix it in the next 4 hours, right? So I think, yeah, just kind of my analysis of it is that there's working hard, there's working smart, and you need somewhere in the middle of there, but you need to combine the two. And so, but I think working smart is always going to, there's like a saying, like strong beats the weak, but the smart beat the strong, right? And so I think that's where there's that balance that anybody has to find. It's gonna be different for everybody, because for me, I derive a lot from working hard. That's like where I kind of get my confidence, at least for tennis. But I think that, there's a line there, and I still think to this day, it's, you're kind of just trial and error, try to find that line. I don't know if there's an exact